Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of September 3rd. Can you please join me in the flag salute? Oh, wait, have to do the roll call first. We got to know if we're here. I'm sorry, go ahead, do the roll call.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Prior to the roll call, I need to make clear for the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953, and that Planning Commissioner Allen will be participating in this meeting by teleconference. In accordance with the Brown Act, the teleconference location has been identified in the notice and agenda for this meeting. I will now conduct the roll call, after which I will confirm certain matters for the record. So with that, Commissioner Moyer.
Here.
Commissioner Slant.
Here.
Commissioner Benefield.
Here.
And Vice Chair Allen.
Here.
Great, thank you. So please bear with me while I briefly go through some special procedures required by the Brown Act. I would now like to request that Planning Commissioner Allen respond to the following questions. Commissioner Allen, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Were you able to hear our proceedings up until now?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Is the agenda posted at the location where you are?
Yes.
Is your location reasonably accessible to the public, such that any member of the public could participate in this teleconference from your location if they wish to do so?
Yes.
Is there any member of the public there with you who would like to participate in the public comment portion of this meeting or otherwise address any agenda item for this meeting?
No.
Thank you. I would now like to ask that any member of the Planning Commission speak up at this time if they are unable to clearly hear Commissioner Allen. Hearing no comment, the record will reflect that all planning commissioners present have indicated that they are able to hear Commissioner Allen. And I just clarify as well for the record that with Commissioner Allen attending virtually and Chair Lefevre's out, that Commissioner Benefield is acting in the capacity of chair for this meeting. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Now will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, next item on the agenda is public comment, and this is a time for people to, what?
Don't we have to go through the parte, like,
Not yet, not till we call the case. Actually, I did skip over introductions. Do we have anything?
Chair, I do not have any introductions for you this evening.
Okay. Ex parte is before the case.
sorry,
That's okay. Jeez. I'm going to make about 1,000 mistakes, so you go right
the
ahead.
name right?
Public comment. Okay, this is for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to come and tell us your beefs and your good things about the city, please do. Nope. All right, then we have the consent calendar, which is 2 commission meetings minutes. And I'll call for a motion to approve one at a time. July 1st.
I move we approve July 1st.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 And then the second set of minutes is for August 5th, 2024.
I move we approve the August 20, what is it?
August 5th
August 5th.
minutes.
I second the motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held August 5th, 2024.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Next, we have a public hearing. And this public hearing regarding your property is, well, first we have to ask if any of the commissioners have spoken to anyone regarding this case, that we must disclose that in our ex parte communications. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, this afternoon, I, with Commissioner Jane Benefield, went over to the property together. We looked at it, the property which was very helpful figuring out where all the structures are on this map. We talked to the property owners about what they were requesting. It was a very productive meeting.
Thank you. John? No. I too was there because she busted me, so. I was at the property. Thank God we went, because from the map and from a picture, you can't see what's there. So I did that, and I spoke with Catherine, and that's it. So with that, maybe we can have the staff presentation.
Thank you,
Perhaps
acting.
I should add, I have not had any communications
Oh.
with the applicant. I am familiar with the property over many years, that location and some of the structures on it.
David, I apologize. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, acting chair. My name is Brian Banks. I'll be presenting the project to you this evening. As you had just discussed in ex parte, the photos probably aren't going to be as helpful now that you were at the site, but we'll go through those as part of the presentation, and I hope that some of the enlarged images we'll have of the map and some of the more descriptive representations of the structures will help as we go through. So, as we just discussed, the lot itself is at 435 Concha Loma Drive. The project before us here is for a two-way lot split of the existing property. The lot itself is located essentially at the corner, would be a corner lot of Concha Loma Drive and Calle Arena, here outlined in yellow. To the north of the site is a vacant, existing vacant lot. To the south is an existing single-family residence. To the east of the site, across the street, is another existing single-family residence. And then, of course, to the west is the railroad corridor and State Beach campground beyond. The subject property is located within our 6R1 single-family residential zone in the low-density land use designation. And the site is within the coastal appeals overlay, being that it's closer to the ocean than the first public road, and also within the Concha Loma neighborhood design sub-area 5. The project before you this evening is to subdivide an existing approximately 19,912 square foot parcel into two parcels, one being approximately 11,223 square feet, and the second being 8,689 square feet. As part of the project request this evening, there are several variances that are being proposed. On resulting parcel 1, a variance request to allow the front carport to be located 2 feet instead of the required 10 feet based on the interior lot setback that would result from the lot split. A rear carport, which I'll get into a little more detail, which would be converted to a storage use, to be located approximately 6.3 feet instead of the 10-foot requirement. An existing workshop accessory structure to be located approximately 4.3 feet instead of 10 feet. And then for both resulting lots, variance request to allow a tandem parking arrangement with only one covered parking space rather than the 2 spaces within a garage as would normally be required in our single-family zone district. And I'll get into a little more detail in that in the coming slides. As you saw with your staff report materials, this is the entire map. Useful for the notations if you care to look at them, but we'll go right into the enlarged view, which should be more helpful. So, of course, the existing parcel outlined here, the curvature of the street here, and then the red dotted line, again, just highlights the proposed interior lot division line. I'll go through in another slide to show you the relationship of the existing structures and their variance requests a little closer in, but this gives you an overview and the public an overview of what's being proposed. In terms of the existing development on resulting proposed parcel 1, there's an existing 768 square foot guest house, which would be converted to the primary residential use as a result of the project. 2 detached carports, one in front that will remain, and then one to the rear, which is proposed to be converted to a storage use as well. And then the above referenced workshop structure. On the resulting parcel 2, there is the existing approximately 1,200 square foot primary residence with an attached carport, a small gazebo structure at the rear, and then a 60 square foot little storage shed that is proposed to be demolished as part of the project. To make a little easier here, each of the existing structures is represented here with the corresponding letter. So on proposed parcel 2, we'll start off with the existing primary residence and its attached carport. On proposed parcel 1, the existing guest house, which again is proposed to be converted to the primary residence on that parcel. The D represents what we're calling the front carport. E represents the rear carport, which was never really used as a carport. We can get into that a little bit as well, which is being proposed to be used as a storage structure. And then F on proposed lot 1 being the existing workshop. Then we've got G down here, right along the setback. This was an unpermitted structure that is being proposed to be removed, demolished as part of the project to comply with the resultant setback. And then H here is the small gazebo. For those of you that visited the site, it makes a lot more sense, but for those that haven't, we have some photographs to follow. So this would be a view of the property, and the proposed division line would kind of follow the driveway line here and jut off in that direction. So we've got the existing primary residence, which is screened behind this tree. Its attached carport here. Some of the structure here, the existing residence, can be seen here as well. The front carport on resulting parcel 1, and with the existing guest house behind. In another view, just at a slightly different angle, you see more of the residence and the attached carport. Get a peek of the ocean and islands beyond. From the interior of the property, this is the rear carport, which will be converted to a storage use. The existing workshop building. Again, from the interior of the property, looking towards the existing guest house. Here's that small gazebo, and you can see just a portion of the workshop behind there. Again, another view of the existing guest house from the interior of the property. A view looking to the east, or northeast, I guess it would be, or southeast, excuse me, of the primary residence on proposed parcel 2. From the street, looking at the vacant lot to the north of the subject site. And then from the street, looking at the adjacent residence to the south or to the southeast. In terms of the project's consistency with our subdivision ordinance, which is Title 16 of the Municipal Code, the proposed project would meet the 7,000 square foot minimum lot requirement for each of the resultant 2 lots, with proposed parcel 1 being approximately 11,223 square feet and parcel 2 being 8,689 square feet. Both of the resultant lots would meet the average lot width requirement of 65 feet, and both of the resultant lots would meet the minimum lot depth requirement of 100 feet. In terms of the project's consistency with the zoning ordinance provisions, As a result of the proposed project, we would be creating two lots where there's only one now. In order to have the existing development be consistent with the zoning code, the guest house on proposed parcel 1 would be converted to the primary residence, thus being consistent with the permitted uses of that zone district. Proposed parcel 2, of course, already hosts the existing single-family residence, so that would be consistent. And then by virtue of the guest house being converted to a primary residential use, the accessory structures on both of the lots would be compliant with the permitted uses as well. The one unpermitted structure on the project site is that small shed shown to you on the earlier slide along the property line of proposed parcel 2, and that's proposed to be removed to make sure that we're consistent with permits and setback provisions. As a result, again, under the zoning ordinance requirements, as a result of the lot split, both resulting properties would, and the structures upon them would meet the 35% maximum building coverage provisions, proposed parcel 1 being the larger of the two at approximately 17%, and then proposed parcel 2, 35.5%, pending removal of the shed that we just discussed. In terms of height, all of the existing development, which is all permitted except for that small shed, all are well within the city's height requirements. Oh, and there's a typo. That should be 30, not 35.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
We knew.
well below. As referenced earlier, one of the major components of this project are the variance requests. And again, for clarity, the applicant had worked with staff to make sure that the proposed lot division is compliant with the subdivision requirements in terms of average lot width and parcel size and so forth. And as a consequence of that, we have this 10-foot interior lot setback provision, which is rather unique. You don't usually see that in the more traditional rectangular lots where you have a 10% side yard setback requirement, which equals 6 feet, 7 feet, something like that. And so as a result of the division line being compliant with all of the subdivision requirements, we're left with this interior 10-foot interior lot setback provision, which renders several of the project aspects non-conforming, and thus the variance requests. So in this case, proposed parcel 1, which is the parcel with the existing guest house on it, the proposed 2-foot setback for the front carport instead of the 10-foot interior lot setback. The rear carport, again, will be converted to storage at 6.3 feet instead of the 10. The workshop at 4.3 instead of the 10. And again, as we discussed, the parking arrangement utilizing the one space covered in the carport and then a tandem arrangement for both of the resulting lots. To make a little more sense of that, we can see here dotted red line representing the resultant 10-foot interior lot setback for parcel 1. You can see the relationship there of the existing permitted structures and that new 10-foot setback line. And again, looking at the history of all of this development, everything there except for that small little shed was previously permitted in their existing locations, now based on the requirements of the zoning requirements of the day. And so even today, if we looked at using our 10-foot average lot width side or interior setback requirements, for instance, this carport here would not be compliant with that. So part of the nature of the variance request is to cure some of the inconsistencies that result from the new application of the 10-foot setback, but in reality would also cure an existing non-conforming condition that resulted from their original permitted locations. Again, the carport arrangement or the parking arrangement would be utilizing the carport here on parcel 1 for one of the one covered parking space, and then allowing a tandem arrangement where you would have one uncovered parking space in front of or on the street side of the carport. On proposed parcel 2, a little more straightforward, given that the existing structures or the existing residence would conform to the required interior side setback here. And again, removing this unpermitted shed would cure that setback issue. So what we're left with in terms of a variance would be, again, the parking arrangement to allow a tandem configuration with only one covered, no garages on this lot either. With respect to the variance findings, your commission would need to make each of these findings as listed here. Special circumstances that apply. The strict compliance would deprive the property of the privileges enjoyed by others in the vicinity and in the same zoning classification. Your commission's granting of the variance would not adversely affect the health, safety, and general welfare. That would not be in conflict with the intended purpose of the zoning ordinance or the coastal land use plan and general plan, and that the applicant would agree in writing to comply with any conditions that your commission would apply to the project. And we do have recommended conditions. In terms of staff's analysis of these findings, special circumstances as described in the staff report and related findings, we do have a rather unique situation here with the shape of the lot and the kind of pie-shaped and corner lot location compared to the vast majority of the lots in this area, in this neighborhood, which are mostly rectangular. A traditional subdivision would be with rectangular lots. So we have this condition of a corner lot and this irregular pie shape, and of course the constraints related to the existing permitted development that are located on the lot now. In terms of the privileges enjoyed by others, again, as earlier related, the application of the required 10-foot interior lot setback renders the existing permitted structures and parking locations to be non-compliant, thus the request for the variance, which would also remedy certain nonconformities that exist even today. Relatedly, it is, and we did research this with the applicant team, that it's unlikely that the special land proposed parcel 1, that those permitted structures that exist, existing permitted structures that exist, could be relocated in a way that would conform to the required setbacks. And it would be unlikely, just based on the areas and the shapes of the lot, that we could get 2 garages that would accommodate 2 cars on each of the resulting lots. And one of the things that we went into more detail in the staff report and the findings are the considerations of the sensitive cultural resources in this area, specifically in this exact neighborhood.
I have lost volume.
Oh, can you hear us?
I just lost you, Brian.
I think you froze up there slightly. You froze on our end. Do we have you back?
You've got me back.
Okay, a little glitch in the interwebs.
I guess so.
So a very sensitive, as I think the majority of us know, this neighborhood is sensitive in terms of the subsurface cultural resources. So in working with the applicant team, when we were looking at various ways to kind of craft the project to gain the most compliance with the ordinance, we looked at complying with the subdivision requirements, first and foremost, average lot size, average lot width, depth, those provisions. Then we next looked at zoning conformance like the setbacks and the covered parking requirements, and realized very quickly that any of those potential outcomes to fully comply with the setback provisions and the parking provisions would require demolition, removal, grading, new driveways, and other subsurface disturbance that we'd like to avoid. So part of this project was crafted, with that in mind. As it relates to health, safety, and general welfare, the project was reviewed by the responsible city departments and agencies, including the fire, water, and sanitary districts, and deemed acceptable as proposed. And of course, As just explained, this project would not require any physical structural development other than minor interior work to create the required cooking facilities that a dwelling would have within a guest house to make that the primary residence on Lot 1. The granting of the result of the approval of the variances would be consistency with the zoning requirements and the setback and parking provisions therein, and again consistent with the coastal land use plan and general plan. And the applicant has agreed as to the recommended conditions of approval should your commission see fit to approve the project with the recommended conditions. I'll go through these just briefly. They're analyzed in greater detail in the staff report, but the key objectives and policies relating to this project, of course, the land use element, establishing the basis for an orderly and well-planned urban development, preserving our small beach town character, and making sure that we're consistent with the established land use densities and compatible with the predominant development pattern. I think that's one of the best aspects of the project is, for most intents and purposes, it's a line on a map rather than a typical development project your commission would see where, we do have actual physical structural development. So in this case, given the fact that these structures that have existed and the uses on the property have existed for over 40 years in this neighborhood, we feel very comfortable that the land use element policies and objectives, as well as the community design element objectives and policies, have been met with this project. Again, relating to size, form, and buildings, there will be no changes other than the removal of that shed. We did look at the Public Works, specifically looked at the existing situation with the driveway and related city infrastructure there, and had no concerns and saw no required conditions that would be applicable to the subdivision. Related to the community design objectives and policies, Sub-Area 5, Concha Loma neighborhood specific. We have a unique neighborhood here, and we want to ensure that development is sensitive to the scale and character of the existing surrounding area, one story, and so forth. Again, as previously discussed, the project would not require any exterior visible changes to any of the structures on the parcel itself, and by virtue of not requiring structures to be moved or new garages to be built, we can feel good about our Concha Loma policies and objectives. Circulation element. The project would result with one new lot in this neighborhood, but based on the city's street networks and traffic patterns, the addition of one new legal residence would not create an onerous or unsafe traffic pattern in this neighborhood. We do have the provision for other lots in this neighborhood to meet the zoning ordinance requirement, could be further subdivided perhaps in the future, and the addition of one new residence, legal residence, would not impact traffic circulation. Open space, recreation, and conservation, as discussed. Most importantly, the preservation of city's cultural resources and the careful review of any development that may disturb. This whole project was designed to not disturb, and thus the variance findings and the variance proposed before you. Project is not located within a high fire area or with any existing FEMA hazard overlay or pending. We do have a map update that's in process. Hopefully within the next 6-8 months will be in effect. We did take a look, staff did take a look at the upcoming pending firm map, and this property would not be impacted by that pending map update either. And relating to adequate services, all existing water, sewer, sanitary connections are in place and permitted. The utility companies were contacted as per our subdivision development application requirements, and cable phone Edison, all no specific conditions. You will see is one of the recommended conditions is, since we do have cross lot utilities, we have water meters that are on one lot that will now have private water line going to the resultant lot, and same thing with sewer and utility lines. We have conditioned the project to require the reservation of an easement to account for those private utilities across the property line as part of the map recordation process. So we'll have an easement in place for the future, for all future property owners, to make sure that their utilities are accounted for and legally noted as part of the property's title. In terms of environmental review, staff did do a review of all potential CEQA options. We found that 3 CEQA exemptions do apply to the subject lot section pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15303, new construction or conversion. This one squarely gets us to the conversion of the guest house to the primary residence on parcel 1. And again, minor modifications, presumably only in the interior of that guest house. Section 15315, minor land division. We are in an urbanized area that's zoned for residential use, less than 4 parcels. Important distinction here is no variances or exceptions are proposed to our subdivision standards. So the resulting project meets our Title 16 subdivision requirements, but of course we're asking for variances for our Title 14 zoning ordinance setback and parking requirements. Was not involved in a previous land division within the previous 2 years and is a basically flat parcel. And then finally, the common sense exemption, given the fact that no development is required or proposed to accomplish the lot split, we can say with certainty that there would be no significant effect upon the environment for approval of the project. So your action options this evening are to adopt the resolution as drafted, thereby approving the project and the related map and variance proposals as referenced in the staff report and the findings, including the recommended conditions of approval. Alternatively, direct the applicant and staff to prepare to work on project revisions and return, or to conceptually deny the project. And we asked that if that was the direction your commission was going to take, that we staff return with findings at the next available planning commission hearing. And so with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Before we have the public hearing, our commissioners want to ask you some questions, and I'd like to ask you to begin with a sort of overarching question about variances. Say one of the property owners wanted to build something different. Those variances go away on that property. Am I correct?
Acting Chair, yes. So the variances would be specific to the project at hand.
Okay.
So they would need to return to your commission if they wanted to seek any kind of future variances or relief from any kind of zoning standard.
Thank you. Now, who else has questions for staff? David?
You asked my question, just I wanted it clear on the record that new construction would mean we'd be reapplying some of the zoning standards to any new construction
And
that
commission-
varied the lot coverage.
And Commissioner, just to clarify, if the applicant or a future property owner in the future wanted to propose some sort of development that complied with the resulting 10-foot interior setback, we could review that. But a new structure could not be built to take advantage of the relief that your commission would be granted this evening.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
David, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Catherine?
I have a question regarding the division of the lot. and it's currently owned by two sisters that are in the same family. They have a lovely landscaped outside with a gazebo between the two houses. Everybody gets along. It's very charming. And I understand that the reason for the lot division is in the future, heirs of the property may want to do something different, or it simplifies things if heirs of one sister and heirs of the other sister who owns what. So, but down the line, the heirs may decide to sell the property. And I wanted to know what things could be incorporated in the legal documents of these two properties regarding things like a fence. Some future person, not a family member, may buy one parcel and want to put a fence up, which would greatly change the whole air of the in the outdoor environment. Somebody might want to put up something that can compromise the view. Both of these houses have quite an astonishing view of the property, and I speak from experience here because my husband's family had a property that was subdivided, and 50 years later, it did come up that there was a condition written in the original division documents about view protections. So I'm wondering about those kinds of things in California. If this is legal, can you stipulate in writing up the deeds of these two things? No fence can be built between the properties, no structure compromising the view of either property, or those kinds of things, because you really have to imagine the worst that could happen.
Right. So Commissioner Slant, through the chair, the city, taking them one by one, the city does have a process for fence permits. So absent a special condition that your commission may choose to apply to the project, a future applicant, the existing property owners or a future property owner could come to the city and apply for a fence permit meeting the requirements of our ordinance, and we would review that. Alternatively, property owners could, as private agreements, choose to come up with their own arrangement that would specify, without being part of the city's, review of the project, that says, if I'm going to have a fence, it must be this tall, or, view protection, those kind of things. Those are all private agreements that could be entered into amongst the parties or, prospective new property owners, and those would be things that would be common for a property arrangement like this. I would say, the fence location and the views, but not something that the city would necessarily be involved with or condition. However, if there was a nexus for your commission to think like perhaps a fence that does kind of make sense from a land use perspective, given the locations and proximity specifically of like the carport, and if there were concerns perhaps with neighborhood compatibility or safety or fire access, and your commission felt strongly that there should be a condition related to future fence installation, that would seem to me something that would warrant discussion. But not likely not view protection, and those are things typically that the city wouldn't condition or require.
But the property owners could incorporate that into the deeds of the property.
Independent of the city's approval, absolutely, yes.
So I would urge the applicants to incorporate those kinds of things in the deeds, because the two sisters now really get along, but you don't know what is going to happen in 40 years. And it can be really messy.
Good point.
Thank you, Catherine. John Moyer?
Yeah. The only question I had was about the drainage related to the 1985 permit. And you folded that into your presentation, so thank you. I think the presentation was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a lot of history.
Yeah.
Yes, it was an interesting read, I'll say that.
Thanks.
Okay, so with that, I will close the questions and call for the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak? Oh, thank you. Give us your name, please.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I'm Laurel Perez with SEPS Land Use Consulting.
Oh, is it on? Okay, should I repeat?
No,
Hello.
we got it.
Oh, okay, great. Laurel Perez with SEPS Land Use Consulting, and we're representing the applicants, as you pointed out, sisters, Susan Vanderkar and Carolyn Ebeling. And this is a property that they both inherited from their parents. And the lot split is all about keeping the property in the family for current and future generations. So with that, and Brian, do I? Go ahead and move it. Okay, thank you. The lot is nearly half an acre in size, and it's the largest lot zone. You can go ahead and flip forward. Zone 6R1 in the neighborhood. It's actually more than double the size of the adjacent lots on Calle Arena. There you go. Thanks, Brian. You can see it there. By the way, the lots that are sort of to the north and west are actually zoned 20R1, so significantly larger lots that I believe none of them can be subdivided because they don't have more than 20,000 square feet. So this is truly a unique situation where this very large lot is zoned 6R1, consistent with the lots that are adjacent to it on Calle Arena. The property is fairly built out, as you've seen from staff's presentation, and no new development is proposed. The existing single-family residence and its carports would end up on, and the carport attached to the existing single-family residence would end up on proposed parcel 2. As we've discussed, and the existing guest house would become a single-family residence with just minor interior improvements needed to equip it with a kitchen. And that guest house would end up as a single-family residence on proposed parcel 1, along with the workshop, storage, and carport. You can see that here. This is the lot split map as we viewed, resulting in 2 lots that exceed the minimum lot size requirement. And the resultant lots would still be larger than most of the lots on Calle Arena. Again, no new structures or development are proposed with this. And as we've just discussed, future development would have to comply with code requirements or return to your planning commission for other discretionary action. So the variances that we're requesting do not tie the hands for future development proposals. Those would have to comply with code. This map is an interesting one. It's harder to see. What you're actually viewing here are the size of the proposed lots in relationship to the existing single-family lots in the neighborhood, but you could also barely see in white there the footprints of existing residential structures, not only on the proposed 2 lots, but on those within the neighborhood. And the development pattern is very similar, meaning the amount of coverage and structural square footage for the 2 proposed lots is consistent and compatible with the development footprint and coverage that you see in the rest of the neighborhood. So the proposed parcels would generally conform to the character and scale of the surrounding neighborhood, continuing to function in the same manner as this property has for the past 40 years, while simultaneously creating a new legal lot with a new single-family residence on it without any new development. Go ahead and flip. These are the photos. I think we've seen most of these, showing the existing structures on each proposed lot. And as we've mentioned, the structures would remain unchanged in their physical exterior appearance. Go ahead, Brian. So the requested variances for the parking configuration and location would allow the resultant lots to continue to function as they have for decades now, and would avoid any major demolition or reconstruction and new construction. The parking configuration is consistent with many other properties in the neighborhood that have single-car garages. I should also point out that we met with the fire department on the property, who viewed the proposed lot splits and the request to maintain the parking in its current configuration with the tandem configuration, and had no concerns or requests for changes. They found that the safety and access requirements would be satisfied. The next slide, please, on setbacks. With the exception of a small shed to be removed, all existing structures are permitted, and the variance for setbacks would allow these permitted structures to remain in their current location, avoiding major demolition and development. And again, any future development would require ARB review and a coastal development permit, appealable to your commission as well as to the California Coastal Commission, given this location in the appeals jurisdiction. And with that, I'll probably close it up. The project overview and goals are here on the On the slide here, this is a lot split that supports current and future family planning, as we've discussed, with no new development proposed. The variances would allow the existing previously approved structures to remain and function in the same way and manner that they have for the past 40 years. Any future development would require ARB review and a new appealable coastal development permit. You've probably seen in your package a few letters of support from the neighbors, and I believe we have a neighbor here to speak in support. Our clients, Susan and Carolyn, greatly appreciate your commission's consideration of this request and maintaining the current parking configuration and the setbacks for the existing structures. Your approval today will support their family's goals and keep the family property in the family for current and future generations. And I really view this as an example of a project that allows your commission to exercise your discretion in support of local families and local family housing. I know we all greatly appreciate the support that the neighbors have lent to the project. And finally, a big thank you to staff who has provided an extremely well-written staff report and presentation tonight. We truly appreciate your work on this, Brian. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to introduce Susan Vanderkart.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, you bet.
You have 2 carports or 1 carport?
There are 2 carports. Well, actually, so it gets very interesting. There are actually 3 permitted carports. There is 1 carport on proposed lot 2, which is attached to the house. Brian has his arrow on it right there. So that's an existing single-car carport that will remain and serve the proposed lot 2, which is the single-family residence. On the proposed parcel 1, lot 1, there are 2 carports, one right there where the arrow is, and that's the one that would remain and function as a carport as it does today. There was a second structure back there that was originally approved as a carport. However, the driveway to that carport was never constructed. And so it's never really functioned as a carport despite its approval as a carport. And that is the structure that would be converted to storage. Essentially, it's being used as storage today.
Is that the shed that
Yeah.
you're going to have to tear
No,
down?
the shed is actually on the other parcel. It's a
right.
very tiny shed. It's kind of
Yes.
right on the property line, and it needs to
Oh,
come down.
Thank you. I see that better now.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Okay, so with that, I'd like to bring up Susan. I think she wants to say a few words, and again, we appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. As you probably figured out, I'm Susan Vanderkar, and my sister, Carolyn Ebling, and I are the applicants. Our parents owned the Concha Loma Drive property for almost 50 years, and we were honored and grateful to inherit it. However, neither of us wanted to part with the property by selling her share to the other or selling the property altogether. We struggled with ways that we could co-own the property. Every option was complicated and would become even more complex with the next generation. In an effort to solve the problem, we decided to see if a lot split was possible. With a coordinated effort among our planners, Laurel Perez and Caitlin Ernest of SEPS, our surveyor, Barry Waters, and Brian Banks, City of Carpinteria planner, a solution has been achieved. We thank Brian for his professionalism, expertise, and attention to detail, as exemplified in the staff report before you. My sister and I appreciate your consideration, and we hope for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
My name is James McIlvain. I'm a neighbor for Susan and Carolyn. I'm 3 doors down to the south at 5517 Calle Arena. I've been in the house now for 7 years, 2017, and I wanted to come here tonight and let you guys know I fully support this proposed lot split. It makes a lot of sense in terms of what's been laid out by Brian, but I guess from my perspective, I feel that it's been a dual residence already for the past 7 years I've been there. It's been something that what's been laid out makes perfect sense in terms of alignment with all the other properties and lots that we have in the neighborhood. They're not proposing anything outlandish in terms of major construction changes, as well as I think it's a very unique lot itself in terms of almost taking a triangular shape and trying to force fit it into a rectangular lot shape that we have for the rest of the neighborhood is very difficult. This is a very good solution to really set the two residences as separate residences without really changing anything associated with the eclectic nature of our neighborhood. And I think their homes that they have right now really adds to that eclectic nature of the neighborhood. We really enjoy it. We really like it. We're not seeing major changes associated with this. And really maintaining something to this manner, I think, is overall very beneficial to the neighborhood. And I guess the concerns that I heard that potentially could be brought up tonight are something I've never experienced in the 7 years I've been living in the neighborhood, specifically parking. There's never, ever been a problem with parking as is, and I know they've had many people there, so the existing space for parking, from my perspective, is not going to be a concern with this lot split. The other aspect associated with the setup is this going to have any kind of issues associated with increased congestion in that corner as you're coming around? We've never had any problems at all in that part of Calle Arena. Towards the end, near Calle Ocho, where everyone's going to the beach and parking, absolutely problems down there, but there's never any issues here. So these variances that you guys hopefully will allow, from my standpoint, really aren't really a variance from the standpoint that what I've experienced has been not an issue at all, and don't anticipate being an issue in the future by simply putting a dotted line down a lot that I really feel was divided already. We're just formalizing it here from my standpoint. So that's all I have to say today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else wish to speak? I'm going to close the public hearing. Going, gone. Okay, let's bring it back to the commissioners. John, would you like to start?
I can support the project.
Into the mic. All right, real.
I can support the project, and I agree with the findings as written out by staff, and that's all I got. I wish him the best, and that's all I've got.
I like that, short and sweet. David, do you have comments?
Yes, I can be short as well. It simply makes sense for the owners, and it imposes no burden on the neighborhood to allow the lot split. It conforms to to the subdivision law and the variances given the circumstances of the lot and the special circumstances of the lot are easy to grant, in my opinion. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
I do want to thank Brian for a great presentation. Thank you.
All right, Catherine?
I approve I agree with this project. It seems very sensible, and it's certainly not going to affect the neighborhood where I live, and I've walked by it many, many times. But I do urge the two sisters in drawing up the legal deeds that you, with your lawyer, contemplate every possibility. No matter how well you get along now, you just can't figure out in 40 years how people will be, or somebody may sell it, and protections so that it will, like about the fence, about putting up some kind of viewing tower that would affect the two properties or whatever. Anyway, that's all. That's my comment.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, this is a sensible thing to do, and I've seen so many families break up over property and money and greed, and somebody coming out of the woodwork and wanting your whatever you have, including my own family, which surprises me, but still. So getting your ducks in line is really a good idea. I have no problem with what you're requesting. You're not making any changes. You're still providing housing. It's great. So absolutely. That's it. Does someone want to make a motion?
Sure. Like me to?
David?
Yeah, I move that we adopt Resolution PC 24006, approving Project 2264, TPM, VAR, and CDP to grant a tentative parcel map variances and CDP to allow a subdivision to create 2 lots, each developed with a single-family dwelling and accessory structures, to grant variances to allow deviations from the building setback, covered parking, and parking location requirements of this zone district, to adopt the notice of exemption pursuant to CEQA, and adopt the findings in Attachment A Exhibit 1 and recommended project conditions of approval in Attachment A Exhibit 3.
Okay, I woke up.
Second. I
All in-
second.
Okay, second. John seconds. All in favor, say aye. Oh, or do you want a roll call vote?
I feel comfortable in this case that we can just do
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All righty, 4-0. Go, don't build, go.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You. All right. Other business.
Acting Chair Benefield, I have nothing else for you under other business.
Okay. Matters presented by commissioners. Anybody want to say anything? David,
Surprised that I have nothing.
I am. You must be very relaxed up there. Okay, I do have a question about the dog park. The return to the planning commission for finalization.
Chair Benefield, you'll recall when your commission approved the temporary use permit, you placed a condition on the dog park pilot project that it come back at the 6-month term. That 6-month term will end sometime in October. That's 6
Oh.
months from when the dog park actually opened,
Okay,
because it took a couple months post-approval by your commission to actually get built and get up and running. So we didn't start the clock till the park actually opened. And so our plan is to bring that 6-month check-in back to your commission for the November hearing.
thank you. All right, director's report.
Thank you, Chair. In your director's report this evening, you have the ARB meeting minutes from the May 30th meeting and the July 11th meeting. Maybe the only, or the main item of interest there in those meeting minutes is on May 30th, the ARB did a conceptual review of the remodel of the Palms Restaurant. And since that time, the owner and his agents have submitted a formal development plan application, and so Brian's been working his way through that one. And that'll be coming back around to the Architecture Review Board sometime here in the near future for a preliminary review. And then perhaps even as soon as the end of this month. And then, sometime following that would come to your planning commission for consideration.
All right, that's good news.
You also have in the director's report the city calendar for the month of September and the planning activity report and building permit report for the month of August.
When's the marketplace, 700 Linden, going to open?
So it's a good question.
Everyone asks me.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
The building shell, so the exterior of the building and the site improvements are all just about done. They're kind of doing the final touches and dotting the i's and crossing the t's on some things there. And now the interior tenant spaces are getting built out. They're just getting started on those. All the tenants have been working their way through the building permit plan check process, and the first couple are just now kind of getting going. Best case scenario, the first 1 or 2 might be ready to open late this year. I think the balance of them will be ready to open for early into the new year.
Wow, okay.
But
Won't
I've
be
heard
open.
from the developer that the ground floor is entirely leased out. So they've got all the ground floor tenant spaces leased at this point.
Do we know who they are, or is that?
We do, yeah. So it's let's see if I can remember them all. So Lantern Tree Books is relocating there. They're currently over in the
Smart.
former Senior Frogs building. You've got a shop called Maker that sells home goods. I guess they have a location up in Goleta. So this will be their second location. Dart Coffee is going in there. This will be their third location. They have 2 other locations in Santa Barbara. Bettina, which is an Italian restaurant with 1 other location currently in Montecito. Third Window Brewing, which will be doing beer and barbecue and burgers. This will be their second location. They've got 1 location in Santa Barbara currently. Corazon, which is a Mexican restaurant, has a couple locations in Santa Barbara, so this will be their 3rd or 4th location. Channel Island Surfboards will have their flagship retail store here. There's going to be a yoga and Pilates studio. The name of the business escapes me. And then there's a kind of a fashion boutique called Shopkeepers, I think. And they've got 1 location in Santa Barbara.
Great. How many stores can they have before they become unavailable? I mean, where they can't build here?
With our formula business
That's right. I
ordinance.
couldn't think of the
I
word.
think it's if they get more than 7.
Oh, fine.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
of course.
More than anyone else knows. Okay,
I have a question
go ahead. Yes, please, go.
to Nick. With the approval of the lot split into 2 different residences, 2 separate residences, does this affect the 901 units that we're supposed to come up with?
Commissioner Slant, that's a good question. We do get to take credit in this case for the guest house becoming
Oh.
a primary residence. So we
Great.
do get to check
Take
1
that
additional
one
unit
off.
off the
Yeah.
list.
Now we
So
only
we
have
only have
900.
900 left to go.
Good question.
Well, everyone helps.
So, are you through, my dear?
I'm through unless you have any other questions for me.
No, I think we just need to wrap up and
Yeah,
find
just
out about next.
attendance for the next meeting on October 7th.
I believe, Chair Benefield, I believe somebody in the back has a question.
Yeah, sure, come on up. It's nice that I like you.
I'll fill out a form.
Okay.
Sorry. Patrick O'Connor, speaking as a resident in District 5. I just wanted to ask staff a question, but I'll direct it to the chair. Project 242290 is a warehouse expansion for the property at Palm Avenue and 6th and Maple, the former Reality Church and the
yeah.
current Super Springs. It shows on the planning activity report back in April, but it no longer shows on the planning activity report as an active project. I'm just curious if that's still active. And
Good
it was
question.
reviewed by the ARB on the 13th of May. For the record, I've recused myself from that project because I live too close to it.
Okay.
So I am speaking as a resident, but I'm just curious if that's still active.
So Chair Benefield, the project that Mr. O'Connor is referring to was submitted just as a conceptual application by the applicant, something that they were exploring and getting some initial feedback from the city and decision makers on. They haven't yet followed up with us in terms of whether this is something that they intend to pursue formally or not. So we have not yet received an official project application for that warehouse addition.
Okay, thank you. All right, unless you have anything else, let's see, who's going to be at the next meeting right after the Avo Festival? 7th, right? That's important to me. Well, I'll be green.
Right.
So will you be here?
Yes.
David?
Currently, I'm expecting to be traveling, and whether I could be available by Zoom or not, I don't know yet. But in that connection, Nick, do you know what's likely to be on the agenda at our October meeting?
Yeah, Nick.
Through the chair, I apologize, Commissioner Allen. I do not recall off the top of my head what we have parked there, if anything. This is one of those
Okay,
questions you
thanks.
ask me every time, and I try to make
Every time,
a
yeah.
point of knowing, and I continue to fail.
No, never.
I'll check with you. I'll send you a note.
Yeah, if you send me an email, we can.
And because if I can plan ahead, I may be able to identify an address where I could attend by Zoom, but I simply don't know at this point.
So
Sojourner.
Brian just was whispering in my ear, the one item that we have parked there right now is a carport structure here in the Public Works yard at City Hall.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's
That's-
that's the only thing as of right now.
Okay.
Should be a page turner.
And John Moyer, you going to be here?
Yeah.
Okay. So there we are.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for everything, Brian. That was a good presentation. We're adjourned. Bye.
Okay.